Okay, I want to review a few things with you. The plans are ready to go pretty much. We can just flip things in and out. But I wanted you to see a few things before we actually submitted the plans. The short story is there are two versions. One has just a column at each end of this porch, and the other one has the 4 columns as shown in your plan. I kind of like the ones as shown in your plan, but because I had modeled this, I wanted you to see them both. This was the existing house fairly close, and once we get the porch mapped out, I'm not sure what exactly, and we can't know what's happening, how this is supported up in here, what's happening up in here, whether that column needs to stay or be relocated or go or can go. I don't know, and we won't know probably until this ceiling comes off at least. But it should be a fairly easy fix to either eliminate it or shift it over. In fact, I didn't actually favor elimination of this member here, this cross member here. This one I can take or leave. And this is, kind of what, we don't know exactly what's happening, why that beam's 5 inches wide, and how far up in there it goes. This was a quick design with a beam recessed way up in there, up on top of some proposed ceiling joists. Leaving that issue alone for a moment though, here is this with the 2 columns at the end. Now, and this is it with the 4 columns across. The main difference in these, and I don't think that that's required there, this is, you could just suspend this from whatever we run up here from the truss work. So that one at the back is not needed. I do think this is needed. And here is open all the way across. Now the main difference with the open all the way across and the 2 columns versus the 4 is this beam, if we have a big open span here, this has to be 2 9.5 inch or 9 1/4 inch LVLs, 18 feet or so. This is nothing again. But notice that it requires, that 9 inches requires this to drop down. There's your top coursing of brick. And I kind of liked it better when it was pushed up in there, which is why, and I like the enclosure of this. So while I thought that this might be something desirable, and perhaps it is, perhaps it still is, I have come around to this being my kind of preferred one. This, your beam becomes almost nothingness, a couple 2x6s, something like this, simple connectors. The outer beam though, I have the trim on here now, but this outer beam here, this can't be bolted to those columns under any, and there will be other columns through here, but that can't be bolted to the columns. It's required that it's sits on top of them like that, is cut into them, required by the code. And this was my first section, and it was then that I discovered that I had made an error and had come 8 foot out from the back side of the foundation instead of the front, so I was missing 8 inches. I know that's an important thing, so now look up here. Here's what happens though when I adjust that, and right now it's 6'11" inside. With that 8 foot there, it was 6'11" inside. But notice this ceiling here. Now when we go out and push that and pick up the whole 8 foot, this becomes 7'11" inside, but you will have a slight slope portion of the ceiling here. As it is, these 2x4 ceiling, I'm glad you're putting vinyl soffits up, since that'll be lighter. These 2x4s are just nailed to the side of those other 2x4s, cut an angle back here, and then these are the 2x4 rafters, the new 2x4 rafters coming down and bearing on our beam. This beam with the full span is a couple 9.5 inch LVLs with the 4 columns, as I said, a couple 2x6s, couple 2x8s tops. But notice that's what you would have inside to pick up that extra depth. and that would die against the beam, the false beam at this point, that turns and comes this way for that last column. Some closer details of how I thought this could be constructed. I don't know if they'll give us any trouble for it. It seems pretty reasonable. I specified the nails here, 3 here and 6 down here, both sides. Down here, rather than dig all those holes back near the house and deal with all that column work, I have running a 2x12 ledger here, because we're allowed to bolt into this concrete wall. We're just not allowed to bear on this brick here. So these fasteners down here, 23 inches on center, and these are about, I don't know, $2 or $3 a piece, maybe 5, 4. But they're very effective. You drill the hole and run them in. I'm also, though, showing these 9-inch lag screws through and into your ledger board inside, into your band joist inside, and that is just to keep that 2x12 from wanting to split in the middle and pull out this way. Out here, you have to cut those columns, whether it's 2 or 4. Well, it's going to be 4 regardless, whether they stop here or go all the way up. You have to notch it for this 2x10 ledger on the outside, and then these joists are just hangers. Use hangers at each end, and the sizing at the plan is so that you can buy 8-footers and maybe trim a 1/2 inch off of them all the way across. This was just more of that, how they have to be on top of the column. And a couple adjustments here. Now this column here, 2-column plan or 4-column plan, is in line right now, is in line with that existing column back behind here. However, I don't like this detail here, where this does not, let me just shift over a little bit. You could see that this roof is, at least should come to this margin here. And so I have preemptively thought that's what you ought to do, and you'll have to dig one more hole to relocate that porch column that's behind this one, to relocate that porch column like that. I think that's the thing to do. I think this is going to look a bit like an error, but it's entirely up to you. It's not necessary. Nevertheless, I'm showing it for now. And then this is going to be some development from this side, just some of these different things. The 2-column plan, and whether this beam, I think this should stay, this piece should stay. It looks a little too wide open with it gone. There's the 4-column plan, and you can see how that beam goes up. From this angle, the same kind of development steps. That was with and without that. There's how much it is right now, the little 2-inch drop. And that could probably just stay just as it is and be arranged. Maybe it's rebuilt to extend over and pick, hang into this or somehow bear on this here. This column will be required regardless, it would appear. That is almost too far down. It's just 6/8, and it's doable. And it was just something I was looking at. Here's that shift. And lifting that beam up some, this beam. And then just applying some finishes. I'm sure these aren't correct, but just to give you a feel for this. We obviously have to rebuild that step by the time we're out. And there's a little bit of detail I'll cover here in a minute about why this is projecting forward some. Now I've made that step because these steps are kind of short, 6.5 inches, 6.5 inches roughly. It may be a little different, and it doesn't matter. But with that composite decking, so you choose, generally you choose between 2 boards or 3. I'm showing 3, so that's a little wider of a step, 14 or 15 perhaps. And there is the 2 columns with the railings, and we go to the 4 columns. Entirely up to you. This probably is going to be a little less expensive because you won't be buying that LVLs. See how it is wide open? I don't particularly care for that. Inside with the 2 columns, with the no columns. And then this was why that these are the Trex deck boards, or 5.5 inch deck boards spaced with an 1/8 inch. And some of this you'll have to make some adjustment on the fly right here if you want this to work out very nicely across here, which I did. So going downstairs, to build this step, we're going to take out that 6-inch concrete step here and pour a new 6-inch concrete slab. This was my idea, and you can change things how you like. And pour a new concrete slab 6 inches thick with a couple pieces of steel in it at the dimension of the stair framing, whether that is 2 boards deep or 3 boards deep. And so this enables us, here we had all these 5.5 inch boards, and we had a little oddball here, which was fine because it was going to be glued and screwed to that existing concrete slab. Nevertheless, if we want that to look a little better, it can, and it can be a little more streamlined by bringing the nosing where you step down to the first step forward about 2.5 or 3 inches, like this, and because you do have the room here to work with. And I guess that is it. So that's it with that. Just showing you how I arrived at certain locations. And now there will be a couple quick turnarounds on the outside, one with the 2 columns and open, with both of them with railings, and the other one with the 4 columns that go all the way up to a smaller beam. So let me know. I can flip out the things in the plan for either one, and this could probably be uploaded in the morning. So let me know. Thanks.